Chapter 5, Print Culture and the Modern World, Notes and Summary. From Class 10, Subject Social Science History, Book India and the Contemporary World 2.
Introduction. Print culture means the culture that developed due to the invention and spread of printing. Before printing, books were copied by hand, which made them expensive, rare, and available only to a small section of society. With printing, books became cheaper, faster to produce, and easier to distribute. Print changed the modern world in many ways. It spread knowledge, encouraged debate, supported religious and social reform movements, created new reading publics, and helped people develop new political ideas. It also played an important role in nationalism and public opinion. The first printed books, the earliest printing technology, developed in China, Japan, and Korea. China had a long tradition of printing before Europe. In China, books were printed by rubbing paper against the inked surface of wooden blocks. This method is called woodblock printing. Important points: China had a large bureaucratic system, so textbooks for civil service examinations were printed in large numbers. Scholars and officials were the main readers. Later, merchants also began using printed material in daily life. Print gradually became a part of popular culture. By the 17th century, urban culture in China expanded. Printed books became popular among not only scholars, but also merchants, women, and general readers. Fiction, poetry, autobiographies, and romantic plays began to be printed. Key term: woodblock printing, a method of printing in which letters or images are carved on wooden blocks, inked, and then pressed on paper. Print in Japan. Printing reached Japan from China. Buddhist missionaries from China introduced hand printing technology into Japan around the 8th century. The oldest Japanese printed book is considered to be the Buddhist Diamond Sutra, printed in 868 CE. It contained 6 sheets of text and woodcut illustrations. Print culture in Japan. Print became popular in Japan through Buddhist texts, visual materials, and literature. Pictures were printed on textiles, playing cards, and paper money. Later, books became available on many subjects. By the 18th century, Japan had a strong urban culture. In cities like Edo, illustrated books became very popular. Artists and writers produced books related to travel, poetry, women, cooking, tea ceremony, flower arrangements, and daily life. Importance of print in Japan. Print helped spread religious teachings, popular stories, and visual culture. It also encouraged reading among common people in towns. Print comes to Europe. For a long time, Europe depended on handwritten manuscripts. These manuscripts were copied by scribes. They were expensive, difficult to produce, and often full of mistakes. Print technology reached Europe through trade and travel. Marco Polo, the famous explorer, returned from China with knowledge of woodblock printing. Gradually, Europeans began using woodblock printing to print textiles, playing cards, and religious pictures. However, woodblock printing was not enough to meet the increasing demand for books. A faster and more efficient method was needed. Gutenberg and the printing press. The major breakthrough in printing came with Johann Gutenberg of Germany. He developed the first known printing press in Europe in the 1430s. Gutenberg had knowledge of metalwork and also knew how wine presses worked. He used this knowledge to design a printing machine. His press used movable metal types for each letter of the alphabet. Gutenberg's Bible. The first major book printed by Gutenberg was the Bible. About 180 copies were printed, and it took around 3 years to produce them. Although this was slow by modern standards, it was much faster than hand copying. Importance of Gutenberg's printing press. The printing press changed book production completely. Books could now be produced in large numbers and at lower cost. This allowed ideas to travel faster and reach more people. Key term: movable type printing. A printing method in which separate metal letters can be arranged and reused to print different pages. The print revolution and its impact. The invention of printing brought a major change in society. This change is called the print revolution. The print revolution was not only about producing more books. It changed the way people read, thought, discussed, and shared ideas. Main impacts of print revolution. Print reduced the cost of books. It increased the speed of book production. It created a new reading public. It spread new ideas quickly. It encouraged public debate and criticism. It also created fear among rulers and religious authorities, because printed ideas could challenge their power. A new reading public. Before printing, books were expensive and limited to the rich and educated. Most people heard stories and religious texts orally. After printing, books became cheaper and more easily available. This created a new reading public. More people began to read books, pamphlets, ballads, and newspapers. However, many people were still illiterate. For them, printed texts were read aloud in public places. Thus, even those who could not read became part of print culture. Oral culture and print culture. Print did not immediately replace oral culture. Instead, oral and print cultures mixed together. Printed books were read aloud, and stories from oral tradition were printed in books. Importance: the new reading public helped spread new ideas among ordinary people. It also encouraged discussion and questioning. Religious debates and the fear of print. Print created opportunities for people to spread different opinions. Religious reformers used print to criticize existing practices. This created debates within society. Many religious authorities feared print because it could spread rebellious and dangerous ideas. Printed books could make people question religious authority and social customs. Example: Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a German religious reformer. He criticized many practices of the Roman Catholic Church. In 1517, he wrote 95 Theses, attacking the church's practices and corruption. His writings were printed and circulated widely. Thousands of copies spread across Europe quickly. This led to the Protestant Reformation, a movement that divided Christianity in Europe. Importance: print helped religious reformers reach large audiences. It also gave ordinary people access to religious ideas and texts. Print and dissent. Print encouraged dissent, which means disagreement with accepted beliefs or authorities. People used printed books and pamphlets to express new ideas. Some of these ideas challenged religious and political power. Example: Menacchio. Menacchio was an Italian miller who read many printed books. He interpreted the Bible in his own way and developed ideas that were different from church teachings. The church considered his views dangerous, and he was punished. Fear of printed ideas. Authorities became worried that print could spread rebellious thoughts. Because of this, many governments and religious institutions began to control printed material. Censorship. The church created lists of banned books. Governments also controlled printing and punished writers or printers who spread unwanted ideas. Key term: censorship, the control or banning of books, newspapers, ideas, or information by authorities. The Reading Mania. By the 17th and 18th centuries, a reading mania developed in Europe. This means people developed a strong desire to read. Literacy rates increased in many parts of Europe. Schools were established, and more people learned to read. As a result, demand for books, newspapers, journals, and magazines increased. Popular forms of reading. People read novels, newspapers, journals, almanacs, chapbooks, ballads, and travel stories. There were books for entertainment, religion, education, and politics. Lending libraries. Lending libraries became popular. People could borrow books instead of buying them. This helped spread reading among the middle classes and common people. Print and Enlightenment. Print helped spread the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers, such as Voltaire and Rousseau. These thinkers criticized tradition, superstition, and absolute monarchy. They supported reason, freedom, and equality. Print and French Revolution. Print culture helped create an atmosphere of questioning in France before the French Revolution. Printed books, pamphlets, and newspapers criticized the monarchy and social inequality. However, print alone did not cause the French Revolution. It helped spread ideas, but people interpreted those ideas in different ways. The 19th century. The 19th century saw a huge expansion of print culture. Printing technology improved, literacy increased, and printed material became cheaper. New groups of readers emerged, especially children, women, and workers. Books and magazines were produced for these new readers. Children, women, and workers. Children. As primary education became compulsory in many European countries, children became an important group of readers. Publishers began producing school textbooks, fairy tales, and children's storybooks. Traditional folk tales were collected and printed for children. Example: the Grimm brothers collected folk tales from Germany and published them. Their stories became popular among children. Women. Women became important readers and writers in the 19th century. Many magazines and novels were written for women. Novels became especially popular among women readers. Some women also became famous writers. Women writers. Writers like Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, and George Eliot wrote novels that explored women's lives, emotions, and social restrictions. Importance: print gave women a space to express their experiences and opinions. It also helped spread discussions about women's education and rights. Workers also became part of print culture. They read newspapers, political pamphlets, and books. Some workers wrote autobiographies about their lives. These writings helped people understand the problems of the working class. Importance: print allowed workers to express their struggles and build awareness about social inequality. Further innovations: printing technology continued to improve in the 19th century. Major innovations: steam-powered printing presses were introduced. These presses printed faster than earlier hand presses. Later, better machines and methods were developed for printing newspapers and books. Illustrations became more common. Cheap editions of books were printed. Periodicals and newspapers reached a wider audience. Effects of innovations: books became cheaper. Newspapers could be printed in large numbers. Reading material reached villages, towns, and cities. Print became a mass medium. India and the world of print. India had a rich tradition of handwritten manuscripts before printing arrived. Manuscripts were written in Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, and many regional languages. Print came to India with European missionaries and trading companies. Over time, it transformed Indian society, religion, literature, and politics. Manuscripts before the age of print. Before printing, India had a strong manuscript culture. Manuscripts were written by hand on palm leaves or handmade paper. They were copied beautifully, often with illustrations. However, they had many limitations. Limitations of manuscripts. Manuscripts were expensive. They were fragile and difficult to handle. They had to be copied by hand, so they took a long time to produce. Sometimes copying errors occurred. They were not easily available to common people. Because of these limitations, manuscripts could not spread knowledge widely like printed books. Key term: manuscript, a handwritten book or document. Print comes to India. Printing came to India in the 16th century with Portuguese missionaries. The first printing press in India was set up in Goa by Portuguese missionaries in 1556. Missionaries printed religious texts, grammar books, and dictionaries. Later, printing spread to other parts of India. English printing in India. The English East India Company was not very interested in printing at first, but later, newspapers and books began to be printed in English and Indian languages. Indian newspapers. Newspapers became important in spreading information and ideas. They discussed social, religious, and political issues. Importance: print helped spread education, religious debate, social reform, and nationalist ideas in India. Religious reform and public debates. Print played a very important role in religious reform movements in India. In the 19th century, many reformers used print to spread their ideas and criticize social evils. Printed books, pamphlets, and newspapers created public debates. Hindu reform movements. Reformers used print to discuss issues such as idol worship, caste system, widow remarriage, women's education, and social customs. Raja Ramohan Rai published writings to support social and religious reform. His newspaper, Sambad Kaumudi, discussed important social issues. Muslim reform movements. Muslim scholars and reformers also used print. They published religious texts, newspapers, and pamphlets. Print helped them debate modern education, religious practices, and social reform. Sikh and other religious communities. Different religious groups used print to define their beliefs and respond to criticism from others. Result of religious debates: print created a new public space for discussion. People could now read different opinions and form their own views. But print also sometimes increased religious conflicts because different communities used printed material to attack each other. New forms of publication. Print encouraged new types of writing and publication. Earlier, most written material was religious or scholarly. But with print, new forms became popular. New forms: novels, short stories, essays, newspapers, magazines, journals, cartoons, calendars, posters, and pamphlets became common. Importance: these new forms reached different sections of society. They entertained people, educated them, and spread social and political awareness. Visual print. Images, cartoons, and illustrations became popular. They were useful even for people who could not read. Pictures helped spread messages quickly. Women and print. Print had a deep impact on women in India. Women began reading books, magazines, and newspapers. Some families supported women's education, while others opposed it. Women readers. In the 19th century, women's magazines began to be published. They carried articles on education, household management, fashion, morality, and social reform. Women writers. Some women began writing about their lives and problems. They expressed their views on education, marriage, widowhood and social restrictions. Example, Rashsundari Devi. Rashsundari Devi was a Bengali woman who secretly learned to read and write. She wrote her autobiography, Amar Jibban, which is considered one of the first autobiographies written by an Indian woman. Importance: print gave women a voice. It helped women discuss their problems and demand education and respect. It also helped spread awareness about women's rights. Print and the poor people. Print also reached poor people, workers, and lower caste groups. Cheap books, pamphlets, and newspapers became available in markets. Public libraries and reading rooms helped poor people access printed material. Print and social equality. Lower caste leaders used print to challenge caste discrimination and social inequality. Example, Jayatibha Phule. Jayatibha Phule wrote against the caste system and Brahmanical domination. His book Gilam Giri criticized caste oppression and supported equality. Example, B.R. Ambedkar. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar used newspapers and writings to fight against caste discrimination and demand rights for Dalits. Workers and print. Workers also read and wrote about their conditions. Some published writings about poverty, exploitation, and factory life. Importance: print helped poor and oppressed groups express their experiences. It gave them a tool to fight injustice and demand change. Important key terms: print culture, the culture of reading, writing, publishing, and spreading ideas that developed due to printing. Manuscript, a handwritten book or document. Woodblock printing, a printing method in which text or images are carved on wooden blocks and printed on paper. Movable type, separate metal letters used in printing, which can be rearranged and reused. Print revolution, the major change caused by printing in the production and spread of books and ideas. Censorship, control or banning of printed material by authorities. Protestant Reformation, a religious reform movement in Europe started by Martin Luther, which challenged the Roman Catholic Church. Vernacular press, newspapers and books printed in local or regional languages.
Important dates and events: 868 CE, Diamond Sutra printed in Japan. 11th century, Chinese developed movable type printing. 1430s, Gutenberg developed printing press in Europe. 1450s, Gutenberg printed the Bible. 1517, Martin Luther wrote 95 Theses. 1556, first printing press set up in Goa. 19th century, print culture expanded in India and Europe. 1873, Jyotiba Phule wrote Gulam Giri. Role of print in modern world.
Print helped in spreading education and knowledge. It encouraged debate and discussion. It challenged religious and political authorities. It supported social reform movements. It gave voice to women, workers, and poor people. It helped develop nationalism and public opinion. It created a wider reading public. Exam-oriented points. China was the first country where printing developed on a large scale. Japan received printing technology from China through Buddhist missionaries. Gutenberg invented the printing press in Europe. The Gutenberg Bible was the first major printed book in Europe. Print created a new reading public. Print helped Martin Luther spread his ideas and begin the Protestant Reformation. Authorities feared print because it could spread rebellious ideas. Reading Mania developed in Europe in the 17th and 18th centuries. In the 19th century, children, women, and workers became new readers. The first printing press in India was set up in Goa in 1556. Print encouraged religious reform and public debates in India. Women used print to express their experiences and demand education. Poor and lower caste people used print to challenge social inequality. Summary: the chapter, Print Culture and the Modern World, explains how printing changed the world. Printing first developed in China, Japan, and Korea. In China, woodblock printing was used for books and official documents. From China, printing reached Japan, where Buddhist texts and illustrated books became popular. Print reached Europe through trade and travel. The biggest change came when Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press in Germany. His press made book production faster and cheaper. The spread of printed books created a new reading public and encouraged people to discuss and question social, religious, and political ideas. Print also created fear among rulers and religious authorities because it could spread new and rebellious ideas. Martin Luther used print to criticize the Roman Catholic Church, leading to the Protestant Reformation. In Europe, the Reading Mania of the 18th century helped spread Enlightenment ideas and encouraged public debate. In the 19th century, print expanded further. Children, women, and workers became important readers. New printing technologies made books, newspapers, and magazines cheaper and more widely available. In India, manuscripts existed before printing, but they were costly and difficult to copy. Printing came to India with Portuguese missionaries in Goa in 1556. Later, newspapers, books, and pamphlets in English and Indian languages became common. Print played an important role in religious reform, social reform, and public debates in India. Women used print to express their experiences and promote education. Poor people, workers, and lower caste groups used print to speak against injustice and inequality. Thus, print culture transformed the modern world by spreading knowledge, creating awareness, encouraging debate, and giving voice to different sections of society.
So friends, we have completed notes and summary of chapter 5, Print Culture and the Modern World. We will do all the question answers of this chapter in a separate video. If you like the video, kindly like, hype the video and share it with your friends. Also subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to receive new video notifications. We will meet in the next video. Thank you for watching.